Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending when and where you're watching this video from. My name is Denise Belil. I'm so glad to have you listening to It's All Good. Look who's here for a chat. Today in my chatting room, I have Lisa Wilson. She's a leadership coach and HR consultant. And our topic is going to be dual part of leadership. To be a leader, you need to care for yourself as much as your team, not theme, French Canadian, not team. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we start, I want to explain why I call this show It's All Good. It initially started, I was deciding to do this show. It was about a year ago. I'm going to celebrate my year anniversary very soon. And I was thinking, how am I going to call it? And I was sitting on my couch and drinking hot water in the morning. And I was like, it's all good. I can call it It's All Good. And initially, I thought it was silly to call it after a cup. But it's not so much the cup, but it's what it says. And why is that important to me is because whatever happened in my life, I've had like years of experience of tumultuous event and ups and downs and moving and changing and doing a whole bunch of stuff. And in the end, I was always saying, yeah, it's all good. I'm not one that will carry a whole lot of grief from the past or whatever happened 5 years ago, 5 weeks ago, or 5 seconds ago. I can't change it. I realized at some point in my life that whatever happened in the past, I can't change it. And if I keep dwelling on it, then it just hurts me. It doesn't hurt anybody in the past because a lot of time people in the past, they don't care. So the only thing that was person that was being hurt is me. So I decided to let it go and say, hey, it's all good. And what about things of the future? Like try to plan changes. I love changes. And sometimes you need to plan, you need to look at what's ahead. And then people can get really nervous, anxiety. People that have anxiety attack is because they're looking at the future with fear. But if you take a step back and say, hey, it's all good. Whatever happened. I'm equipped to deal with it. And then this why it's all good. That's what we call this show. And my guests are often people that are here that have had their own experience, that have worked towards a different event in their life so that they have grown, they have built expertise in their field. And that's why I have my wonderful guests. So without any further delay, let's welcome Lisa. And here she is. Woohoo, Lisa,
Woohoo!
welcome. Welcome to the
Thanks, Denise.
show.
Thank you.
So good to have you here. And so I know you have a little cold,
I
so
do.
don't
Not
be,
COVID.
people, you're not going to catch it and it's not COVID. So
Yeah.
you might hear sniff a little bit or,
Yeah.
cough.
Yes.
But that's okay. She's fine. She's good. She's good.
I'm
She's
fine.
mending. So, Lisa, welcome. I'm so happy you agreed to be here with me today. And so, why don't you start by just introducing yourself and telling the audience who you are and how you became an HR consultant and a leadership coach?
Sure, I'd love to. It's a bit of a long story, but I'll give the abbreviated one.
The long short story. Yeah.
The shorter story, yeah. So I was in human resources for about 17 years. And I was at one point I was at a company that really I didn't fit at. We laid off all the employees. There was like 10 of us there. We were just taking care of the company to try and hopefully open it back up again later. And it wasn't a good time for me. It was very difficult. And I went to I went to an HRPA, which is the Human Resources Professionals of Association in Ontario. They had an all-day event, so a conference of sorts. And I was sitting at a table and they were doing a bunch of stuff about emotional intelligence. And at my table was a life coach. And she does both life and corporate coaching. And when you just meet someone and it's like the sun shines on them, it was like, yeah.
An epiphany. I call that
That's
an
exactly
epiphany.
what I was
Right?
going to do. Yeah, it just was like, oh, this is awesome. And so I went and took her courses to become a coach. Initially, she said to me, don't take the full coaching course because she said, you have such a great career in human resources. I teach a course called Coach Approach. So she takes managers and she teaches them how to manage in a coaching way. So I took that course, but then I loved it so much I went back for the full coaching course. I had moved on from that job. I had a couple after that. And then I was at a job that I really didn't like. We had very, very opposing values. So I'm at this company that has just values that do not meet mine at all. And it was awful for me. It was really hard to be there. And I was thankfully, no, you don't hear people say this very often, but I was blessed with a layoff. They restructured and I got to leave.
You know,
So,
I that's why I said to people, there's always a gift in every situation.
yeah,
So
I'm
you
sure the
experience
woman
that gift.
was shocked because most people, when they get laid off, don't go, "Oh, thanks." Oh, great. Oh, yes.
Do I get a bonus on top of that?
Right.
Yay!
Yeah, because it would have been so hard to make that step on my own because I was making really good money.
Hmm.
I didn't like being there, but I was making really good money and I'd been
It's
coaching on the
hard,
side
yeah.
for a while. Yeah. But to say goodbye to that was like, and a good pension and all of those things that keep you
Of
stuck,
course, of
right?
course.
So I was blessed with a layoff, and I'd known since I took the coaching course that the next thing I was going to do was start a coaching business. And then I left HR for quite a while. I didn't want to touch it because after being at that company, when you're somewhere where your values don't match, every thought that I had, every suggestion I made, they just kept telling me I was wrong. I was always wrong.
You kind of lost
Every other
confidence.
company, I was right and I was celebrated and they thought I did a great job, except not here. That really takes its toll on your psyche.
Of course, of course.
And it took several years for me to come back into coaching and saying I'd be a leadership coach and human resources consultant.
Yeah.
Because I wanted nothing to do with it. And I really did get called from previous coworkers saying, Lisa, you can't leave HR. You're really good at it. You need to stay in HR. And I was like, after the last 3 years with that company, I'm so done with it. I can't take it anymore. So
Yeah, I can understand that for sure.
yeah.
Because when we reach a point of I call that like building stress, right? Like it was one stressful situation on top of another, on top of another, and that's what makes the
Yeah.
pressure cooker explodes for a lot of people when they get into depression and all that. It's too much.
Yeah, and I tell people now, look, if you're a leader and you have someone working for you that just doesn't fit in your company, let them go. Just let them go.
Yeah.
Because you're harming them. You're doing harm. Letting them stay is going to harm them more than you realize. Because if you talk to people, when I was an HR manager by the time I was 28. I was 5 years into my career. I came out of university. I did 5 years in HR and took a manager's role. So by 20, actually, yeah, I was 28 years old, or 20, yeah, about 28. Because I told myself I'd be a manager before I was 30, and I made it at
So you
28.
did it, yeah.
I did. And from that time, all the companies I worked for had celebrated me. And so if you'd gone and asked anybody that I worked with and told them how I was feeling, they would be shocked because I was so confident in my role prior.
Yeah.
But 3 years at this company where I didn't fit,
They just like drag you down. Yeah.
Yeah. Big drop in my confidence levels. And it took years for it to come back. So my own lesson from that is I don't work with companies where I don't fit.
Yeah.
And even as a business, if we start to get to know you and I don't and maybe your values don't match mine, then I'll suggest someone else for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. And I hope people that are listening because if you find yourself in a situation where you're not happy, money is not the reason to stay, because your health is going to suffer. You're going to have depression. You're going to lose self-esteem. You're going to lose confidence in yourself. Everything is just going to go down from there on. So it's better to walk away from something we think that, oh my God, but there's there's so much money that I'm going to leave and all that. But just as I was saying earlier, it will be the best thing you would have done, is to leave that toxic environment, whether it's work, relationship, or anything else. Like sometimes some friends, are toxic for us, and we need to sever those bonds in order to move on and move in a more positive, environment. So I
Yeah.
applaud you for that. And luckily they let you go. So
Yeah.
yay. Even
Got
better.
a little money to come with it. My friend said to me, "Oh, it's too bad you didn't get to leave on your own time." I'm like, "Who are you kidding? I get money this way."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So since then, so how have you been? Like, I'm glad you were able
Yes.
to make peace with the bad experience that you've had. You rebuild your stamina and your
Yes.
confidence into being an awesome HR person, consultant.
Yes.
And so how are you helping people into your field now? So how
So,
what does that look like to work with you?
sure. So I do mostly coaching. I teach a couple of courses as well, and they were built on the kind of the groundwork of my coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call them pillars, but I'm writing a book about them now. So now I call them the roots of leadership. So I teach this course where I give 4 lessons that if you really know these things well, you'll be able to make all your decisions really easily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do that course. It's 8 weeks, and we do a lesson and then coaching, and then a lesson
Yeah.
and coaching, and that's in a group format. But otherwise, if you're working with me one on one, I'm not the kind of coach that says, "Oh, come and do my 5 steps." I don't believe in that. I think everybody has a different 5 steps. And what you need in this moment is not what someone else needs in this moment.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
when you come in, we do have goals. It depends how I get hired. So sometimes, well, I mean, we'll have goals either way, but sometimes I get hired by a company to come and coach someone on their team. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get hired by the person for themselves.
Yeah.
So we'll sit and we'll say, okay, where is it you are now and where is it that you want to be? So what goals are we looking for? If it's the company will call me and say, these are the problems we're having with this employee, and this is where we'd like them to get to. And so then I've got the goals written out.
Yeah.
But because I don't follow any specific path, we'll just have conversations and we'll work through what's going on for you. Because um, so sometimes it's inability to communicate, and that just shows up for so many people. Like they just
Yeah.
can't communicate with someone that they're working with. And for some people, this looks like I have to talk to them about what's the proper way to communicate or how to understand the other person. And with other people, it's more about self-esteem, and we have to talk about why they're not talking, and more of a convincing around, okay, wait, but if they don't know, they can't do what you need them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the person. We'll get to the goal, but it's never the same process.
Yeah,
And
and I think that's what it's important, because
yeah,
to be flexible. And I kind of deal the same way in my coaching, saying that it's not
yeah,
one path doesn't fit all. Like, it's not a fit, it's not just,
no,
step 1 or 2 and 3 4 5, like you mentioned, right? Like, it's,
no,
and I appreciate you do that with your clients, right? You just do an
yeah.
analysis and then see what are their needs, and you go there.
Yeah, and I had a client who is more, he likes the step 1, 2, 3, 4, and so I said, well, just trust me, we'll get there. And so in his second to last session, he said to me, like, did we even get to my goals? And I said, well, I said, why don't we go back and review them? Because I don't go back and look at them, because I know what they are and I know where we're going, right? Um, but so I said, well, why don't we'll start next session, the last session, with we'll go through your goals and we'll see if we
Yeah,
didn't get any of them yet.
yeah, yeah.
And he said, okay. So we go to the last session. I said, okay, for you, I'm going back through your goals. And he said, okay, 1, did we do this one? He said, yeah. I said, 2, did we do this one? He said, yeah. I said, 3. And I think he had 4. So we went, get that in the screen, but we went through all 4. And he was like, oh, I said, I know it
It
wasn't
just
linear.
flew, like.
I know it wasn't linear, but some of those we fixed 1 and 3 at the
Yeah,
same time, because
exactly.
they were both about the same thing. They were
Hmm.
both about a misunderstanding on how you deal with this type of person.
Yeah,
So it was
that's
really funny. Oh, we did. Because
yeah,
I'm sure he thought she never looked at the goals. There's no possibility she got there.
yeah. We never talked about my goals again. It's like
Yeah.
how, and that person probably forgot exactly the things that they were asking. But it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we set up some goals, and now we're
Yeah.
finishing. And it's like, and
Yeah.
then I love that,
Mhm.
looking back and say, okay, so let's do a review. And it's like, I
Yeah.
do the same. I have sort of an assessment when I start, and then at the end, we redo
Redo it.
the assessment, and then you look at the percentage of increase,
Nice.
and the
Yeah.
you improve like 200% in this area. I was like, really? That's how I feel now, as opposed to how I felt
Yeah.
8 weeks ago. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, oh, okay, great.
It's amazing, right?
And
And
changes, you don't realize changes, right? It's like going to
yeah,
the gym. If you look at yourself in the mirror every day when you go to the gym, you don't see the difference. But
yeah,
if you take a before and after 3 months picture, you will see the difference. You will see
yeah,
the muscle definition. You'll see you'll thinner, right?
yes. And sometimes it's a very, very small change.
Hmm.
Right? It's just something little. Like some managers, it's as simple as saying, because it's not their personality to do so, but it's as simple as saying, "Did you say good morning and how are you to your staff this morning?" And they're like, "No." Like, because it's not their personality, and there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
you're working with people of that personality. But if you're working with someone who has the personality that it's important for us to have a connection,
yeah,
then you got to say good morning to them every morning. And it's
yeah,
so simple because they're like, what a difference.
yeah,
All I had to do was say good morning. How was your evening? Yep.
yeah. Because it shows that you care, right?
Yeah. And for them, it's important. Whereas for you, they care anyway because they showed up to work today, right? They're very logical in their thinking. Oh, that person showed up to work. Obviously, they care about work.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but for the others, it's no, they need that connection between you and I.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And so what is your
Okay.
5-step system?
Don't have one.
There's no system.
There's
Forget
no,
it. There's no system,
yeah,
which is awesome.
yeah.
And
I do have lessons in the course, so that's
yeah,
helpful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who would take the group course as opposed to going one-on-one? So what makes the difference between the two?
I think it depends on the person, but I built the course. This is a very strange concept, though. I built the course with the thought in mind that we don't train our leaders very well. So we'll take people, we'll say the best mechanic or the best counselor or the best whatever role, and we take them and we make them the manager or we make them the supervisor. And that those two, like, they don't equate. Just because you're the best mechanic, it's not going to mean you're the best supervisor, because you need a whole new set of skills for that.
Yeah.
There's a whole new set of skills that goes with that piece. And sometimes it might not be that you put the best mechanic as the leader, because there's some guy who's maybe not the best mechanic, so he doesn't fix things as fast as anyone else. He doesn't know all the answers, he doesn't know that, but he's looking at the company as a whole, so he knows what's going on in the other shift, and he knows what's going on in the two other shifts, or he knows what's happening in I'm in a mining zone, so we'll just say in the mine as a whole, and he understands that bigger picture. Well, he actually might be better as the supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
So you want that look, but regardless, when we take the best mechanic and we throw them over, that's who I was looking at. And I was like, okay, I've taken just like years. Well, I have to lean the right way, but you can see this way, all the binders that I've taken. I've got 2 shelves of binders, and that's like half the binders I used to have. I've taken all this management training. I thought, okay, what are the like 4
There
or
we go.
5?
These are the binders, right?
There we
Right
go.
there. Yes, yes, yes.
I can move my chair. There's all the
All the
binders.
training. Yes.
All the training. So I thought, okay, what are the 4 things that would really just give a good solid base? Because the other problem is, in those courses, I would go to the course for 4 days, and then I'd come back to 1,000 emails, and I'd take the binder and I'd go up on the shelf, and that was it.
Yeah, I call that shelf help.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Shelf help. I love that. So it's there, but we don't have time to integrate it. And
Yeah.
so when I did the course, I thought, okay, what are the 4 things? If they knew these 4 things and they were comfortable in these 4 things, that they could really do a good job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not the best leader in the ever, but these 4 things will get them from really to getting a lot closer to that great. And so I took the 4 things and how I generally teach them. So if you go online and come with me, I do it twice a year. I teach it as 1 week I teach, the next week we coach after you've practiced what I've taught for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next week
So
I
it's
teach
hands-on.
Yes. And the following week you practice. Like you practice between sessions, and then we coach on it again. So it's 8 weeks of that. Every now and then, though, I get called in to do a group of leaders at a company, and they can't it's so hard to get at a company to have everybody
Get it
come
all
an
together.
hour a
Yeah.
week. It just doesn't work. So I'll do at the least 2 sessions so that we can teach. I can do some coaching, and then we can um, and then we can do the last 2 lessons, which are a little easier when you're at a company, because one of the lessons is mission, vision, and values. And so what that looks like, how you live the mission, vision, and values. So it's a little bit easier to do when you're at a company, because I don't have to talk to them about building it
Yeah.
or going to find it.
And
Right?
it's also important, I imagine, for people in HR to know what they are, because I
Yes.
mean, in leadership, because
Yes.
if you ask, I'm sure if you work in company and ask them, okay, what are your mission, vision, and value, and then I don't know.
Yeah. But then and you'll hear that sometimes, and then you'll hear someone like a manager say to a supervisor, well, we don't do that here. Well, what told me not to do that here?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So you do really need to have that as a solid piece. And what I do with some leaders, because some leaders will come and just take the course on their own, that maybe the company has paid for them,
Mm-hmm.
but the company didn't look through the course. So if we get to the mission, vision, and values and they don't know what it is, I'll say, well, let's just imagine what it is. Let's talk about how you treat people, or the expectations that have been set to you at this point, and what do you think those values are? And then and we just sort of extrapolate from there, and then we talk about what does that look like in your department, because I work generally with small to medium-sized companies, so I'd say up to about 500. But you might have an accounting department that's in a mine or somewhere, right? So the accounting department, while the mission, vision, and values exist, and theirs need to match, theirs need to maybe say something a little bit different, so that so they can have their own mission and vision, probably the same values, but they can have their own mission and vision on how the accounting department fulfills the mission of the company.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how, because every department has their own dynamic, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I mean, like accountant, what's our mission? Was that first of all, we send invoice on time, we get paid on time. Right?
Exactly.
That's one of our mission, but that doesn't work for people that are extracting or whatever. Right?
No, exactly. Right. And they'd probably have more contact with like suppliers and purchasers and things like that. And so there needs to be some values around, how do we treat those people? How do we treat our staff? And a lot of companies have a value of respect. Okay, what does respect mean? Like, what does respect mean? Because I always think about it, this doesn't work anymore, but when I was younger, it worked very well. I would stand at presentations and say, even up to a few years ago, have you ever been to McDonald's? And McDonald's has, like, you can order a smile on the menu, right? It's supposed to be one of the happiest places on earth. Like, you could order a smile. And inevitably, when we were at McDonald's, there'd be some kid in the back making a burger getting yelled at. Well, that's not the happiest place for that kid, right? So we have these statements. But we have to be a little clearer on what they mean. So what does respect look like? Well, respect certainly looks like, if somebody's in trouble, you pull them aside. You don't yell at them, where not only can his or her coworkers see, but anyone who happens
to come, or whatever. Yeah.
And I haven't been into a McDonald's in a long time, but I think you can't see as well in the back as you used to.
Yeah. And I've had that. It's funny you mentioned that, because I moved in. I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, and before I moved here, I was in Ottawa. And I was working for the government doing 3D animation, totally different field. But my direct supervisor was that type of person that would come into the bullpen, where there was like 4 animators, stand behind the one person and treat them like rotten meat in front of everybody else's.
Yeah.
And to the point that there's even a girl once, she started crying, right? And being humiliated from that person in front of everybody else's.
Wow.
And it takes a lot of, for receiving that in public and be humiliated or even being reprimanded. Like, people don't like to be reprimanded, right?
No.
But she felt so bad. You do that in an office, quiet, and then you can go to the bathroom, blow your nose, and come back to your desk with red eyes, but it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And
and a reprimand can be done and still hold someone's self-esteem. Look, you're a great employee. These are the things I like about you. in this particular instance,
Balance
I'm
it
not
out.
seeing what I need to see. And, and then some people are going to take it personally and they're going to get hurt anyway. So I always say to people, just keep Kleenex on your desk because they might cry. That's okay. As long
Yeah.
as they understand what you're saying at the end of the day, you have
Yeah.
to be really clear. These behaviors, just these behaviors, not you. You're not a bad person. I like
Yeah.
you. I
Yeah.
like all of this work that you do, but this one thing, we need
Yeah.
to focus on that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you can do it and hold their self-esteem, right? If you're, like I said, if you're doing it well.
Yeah. And when I quit that job to move here,
Yeah.
so I didn't do it in public. I went to his office and then I said, like I'm quitting, whatever, I'm leaving town. And then I told him how I felt about his manner because I said, you can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
like we were about the same age at that time, right? And it was
Yeah.
like, you can't do that. You can't treat people like that.
No, it's
It's,
not okay.
you're totally ace H and, like
Yeah.
don't do that to people because, it's not the way to deal with
No.
relationship and people anyway. So I don't know
Well,
what I'm
and,
gonna do because I moved away, but at
and
least I told him how I felt.
yeah, no, and good for you because the other thing I teach all the time when I teach in leadership is I teach that as a leader, if you picture, I had a leader who used to say to me, "Get on the balcony." He used to say to all of us as the team, "Get on the leadership team, get on the balcony." And so the picture I have in my mind is, say we're all trying to build a trench. Well, if no one ever gets up on the ground, say there's two trenches that have to come together, well, they won't.
Mhm.
They won't
The
match
bigger picture.
if no one's looking at the bigger picture. And then if you picture a really tall building near that trench, you can see, okay, there's one level of leadership, they'd be on floor 1. Right? There's another level, they'd be on floor 2. And so and each floor we're looking further out and wider.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to keep that in the camera, but a wider view of things. And so as a leader, you should be taking the wider view and the longer view. So what is the long-term view of you yelling at someone in front of
Mhm.
their
Mhm.
teammates?
Yeah.
What's the long term of that? What good is going to come from
Yeah.
that? None. They are not going to be motivated to work for you. There's not a chance.
And that's
Now, now the rest of the team has seen you yelling at that person, and now they're worried if they make a mistake, that's how they're going to be treated. So not only do you mess up that one person, the
what
whole
everybody else.
team doesn't trust you. So you completely lost trust. They're not going to be motivated
Yeah.
to work for you. And so the long term of that, so being on the balcony for that behavior coming from yourself is really just bad behavior in the long term.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we were like what it did is it made us closer to one another between the four
Yeah.
employees and us against him, right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
he alienated us, and then we were like more supportive towards one another
Yeah.
and a lot more against him. So that was
Which how do you lead if people are working against you? Right?
exactly,
Like it doesn't make any sense. So again, that's that whole that leadership piece of being able to bring people along with you. So getting on the
yeah,
balcony, and I use the mission, vision, and values is because I like pictures. But if you think of the vision as something at the end of a long road, and then the mission is what the road looks like and how we are currently traveling that road, and then the values are those guardrails when the road just drops off, they put up those guardrails, so they put in posts and steel. That's your values. It keeps everybody on the same road.
I like
And
that.
so yeah, so
Can you say that again?
I sure
So
can.
that yeah, the
So
vision is
the vision is, it's the picture, it's the view of future life basically at the end of a long road. And I usually tell people that if you're writing a vision, it should be something we can never actually get to. We're
mm,
constantly working towards, but we'll never get to. So words like change the way our current whatever you're working in, change the way people see consultants or something like that, or better product, better price. Can never get there, but we always know we're working towards it, right? So it's this vision at the end of a long road. The mission is how we're on that road,
the
the road
path.
itself,
Yeah.
and as well as the as how we're getting on. Are we like in a speed train? Are we in a car? Are we, like how are we going along that road? And then the values are the guideposts. And
That's
so yeah, the guideposts are very much like I said, I prefer it to look like this, really wide. But I'm just trying to keep my hands on the screen.
Yeah.
So you put up the guidepost. That's your values, and that's
Yeah.
how we're willing to allow you to behave at this company.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah, and getting really clear on that helps to keep everybody in line. And really, at the end of the day, most people will have a value for respect or something like it. And so I've never worked anywhere that there wasn't a value that we don't yell at people. It just it happens some places, but most places that have written a set of values, that's in there somewhere that they shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But every company is different in how well those live. So sometimes we write a mission, vision, and values, and we take it and we stick it up on the wall, and it sits up on the wall, just like you said, shelf,
Self
shelf,
help. Yeah.
shelf help.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's something that, when I think of that as I'm all by myself, so I know what are my mission, vision, and values, and
yeah,
it's my own. But as for a company, I think it would be important to bring that back often, bring
yes,
it back into the floor, bring it back to meetings, bring it back.
yeah.
Okay, our mission is, our vision is this, our mission is there, and these are our value. How are
And
we? How are we on the road, on the path to
yeah,
reaching that?
and a really good way to do that is to tell stories. So
Mm.
someone who really met the mission, vision, and values, any part of that, if there's a team that did something that really meets that, then tell that story and tell it all the time. Have an
Mhm.
employee meeting and say, hey, we have a great example of our mission being, alive and working, and here it is. And you don't even have to say that part, you just tell the story,
Yeah.
because then people know how they're supposed to
What
behave.
that look like.
Yeah, what that looks like. Or even just at the end of the week, do a celebration of, hey, so and so did great work here today, and it meets this piece of the of our values or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool,
Yeah, it
because
is.
we build those things. We take time,
Yeah,
right? We take a lot of time to really create our mission, our vision, and what
yeah,
we want out of our companies and where we're going.
mhm,
And it's not just for, as we mentioned again, the joke, like shelf help, right? It's not
yeah,
just there to, and even like I see companies, they have that on their wall, literally, right? Like,
yes, yeah.
but then it becomes, you don't see
No,
it
then
anymore, because it's just, you pass by, but you don't read it, you don't pay attention to it.
no, because exactly what's happening. So, say the company you were working for, there may have been a value of respect, but this man is yelling at you guys all the time. Well, clearly that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't reflect the
No, it
values.
doesn't respect the values, and so then they're just something they've written on the wall, and and people smell that a mile away, right? Like they know when you're not matching your own values.
Hmm.
They know it's there, that you can feel it sometimes when you walk into a building. I've walked into companies and I was like, oh, you can like feel the energy of the place, and you think, oh, there's something wrong here. This isn't
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's something very, very wrong here, and it'll take some time to figure it out, but you get there. But most people can smell it as soon as they start. It's usually a very quick. Anyone I talked to that that worked for a company that they where they didn't belong, so whether it was a values mismatch or whatever it was, why they didn't belong there, but I'll say to them, when did you know? And they'll say, like, a weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
And you
know.
hope that you're wrong, right?
Yeah,
You hope that
yeah,
you're wrong, and then you stay, and then you try to bring your best, and then it
yeah.
just doesn't work.
Or you hope you can make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can, because I have worked at places where I have made a difference, and sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I think we'll save your voice.
Thanks.
And so, do you have one last tip before we go off? And do you have, like, how people reach you? I think you have your website,
I
right? And
do. I
I'll
have
put
it.
it in the
Yeah.
show note, which
Yeah. I
is
have it.
lmwcoaching.ca.
Yep. That's the one.
Wonderful. So I'll put
And
that
you
in the
can get
show
to
note.
all my social media from that. So,
Oh, perfect. And you have also a difficult conversation ebook people can get from you. Is
I
it on your
do.
website?
It sure is. So if you go to the front page of the website, actually, I have a bunch of ebooks now. If you go to the first page of the website, though, on there it says, "Do you have Do you have trouble with difficult conversations, or do you dread those difficult conversations?"
Download the free ebook.
Yeah, it'll just say right there. It just got changed to an ebook. It used to just be a one pager, but you can also go under resources, and there's a bunch of other ebooks now
Oh,
I
wonderful.
just had someone build them for me. She put them up last week. So if you go under resources, there it says free ebooks, and they're immediate downloads. You won't get put on the. You'll still get put on the email list, but you get the ebooks
Oh,
in the
perfect.
receipt. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And
Yeah.
what's your last tip? Is there one thing that people should know about, having great leadership into their own leadership also,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Personal
Well, we
leadership.
didn't. We ended up talking about something totally different than we expected to.
I
So,
know, I
so I
know.
would say yes, as a leader, and strangely, me saying this while I'm saying it with no voice, but take care of yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not showing up the way you want to show up. You're just showing up in kind of automatic mode. And when we're in automatic mode, we're not thinking about how we want to behave. We're just behaving.
Yeah.
So if you have the mission, vision, and values, and you want to live by that, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to show up in that way. So you have to be number one.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yes. That works really well for me. You
Yeah.
know, like I have a talk where I talk about the three level of relationship, and it's the I, the we, and the they.
Oh, I love it.
So the I is the most important, right? You got to take care of yourself. Then you take care of people that are really close to you, like your
Family
spouse or
members.
your children, or people that are very close to you. And then the they is like people you work with and people you
Yeah.
encounter every day and all that, and how to deal with that, because the I is such important.
Well, because you don't. What I discovered when I shared with you before, but I had half my thyroid removed, and I became a person I didn't recognize anymore. I could
Mhm.
no longer do the exercise that I used to do, so I didn't have a way to get rid of my stress. I used to
Mhm.
do like P90X and CrossFit and all these like extreme exercises. I'd go mountain biking for 2 hours in the evening or something like that. So all the stress, I had a way to get it out. Well, after my thyroid was taken out, well, just half of it. So this shouldn't happen. It doesn't normally happen to people,
Your
but I
energy.
lost all my energy.
Mhm.
So I had no way of getting rid of that stress. So then suddenly I wasn't showing up in a good way for my family, for my
Mhm.
clients, for anyone. And all of my energy, more of my energy was put on the clients because that's where my money is coming from,
Of
right? Like
course, of
I
course.
had to give my all there, and then there was nothing left for the family.
Yeah. And
So
that affected a lot, I'm
it
sure.
did. And then the ability to then go, okay, this is what my life looks like now. I can only do 10 minutes of exercise. I can walk my little dog and do my 10 minutes of exercise. And once that's done, then I can keep myself in more of a level
Mhm.
space. I
Mhm.
also changed how I ate and I did a lot of things like that. But that was all about taking care of number one. Because
Yeah.
if you don't, and there were things I said sometimes to the kids that I look back on and I cringe and I thought, oh God, where did that come from? But when I'm in a better space, they can even say awful things to me because they're kids. They do,
Yeah, of
and
course.
they can say awful things to me, and I'll go, okay, I get where that's coming from. It comes
Mhm.
from a much better place because I'm comfortable with who I am and
Exactly.
where I'm at, and I can go, okay, I'll accept that, and I'll consider how I'm going to respond as opposed to just
Snap.
what, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
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 that's very important. So yes, people take care of yourself,
yes,
take care of, your life and the stress that you accumulated. And
yes.
so thank you so much, Lisa. Just stay there. I'll be right back with you.
All right.
I'll go say goodbye. So thank you so much for those that have listened. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. And it's always a pleasure to be here every Monday for live. Lucas here for a chat. It's all good. See, it's all good right here. It's all good. So it's super excited to do this show every week. So until next time, be kind to one another, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.